So the part that today, we're hearing from technicians who have been through community college programs and now are successfully employed. But you also have a chance to have an expert demonstrate essentially a technique that you might wish to use yourself when you get back to doing professional development activities at your college, and you can see whether you like this strategy or not. But I'm going to turn the session over to Terrell Bailey, and she will explain what's going on and have our fish introduce themselves.
Thank you, Elaine. It's great to be here with all of you. Thank you for coming. So, I know Elaine said this to some of you, but not all of you were here. So, this process is called a fishbowl, and the idea is that our fish, our panelists, if you will, talk to each other and feed off and build off of each other and have more of a discussion and less of a panel presentation, my 5 minutes and your 5 minutes and his 5 minutes. So that, and the idea is that out of this process there will be more insight. You know, they may gain insights that they wouldn't have written on their 3x5 cards in preparation, on their smartphone now, but in preparation for speaking, right? So that's the idea. And we'll ask for you to observe, and any comments you have, we'll open the floor at about 2:20, about 10 minutes. The last 10 minutes will be for questions. So if you have a question, make note of it, and then we'll have a dialogue between the fishbowl watchers and fish. That's the plan. So I'd like to begin by introducing our three really incredible community college representatives and technicians. The first is Trinidad Gonzalez. He is from Chicago. He is currently a lab technician at the Institute of Tuberculosis Research here in Chicago. He was initially a non-science major, interested in photography, and then he took a biotech class or two at Harold Washington College, and it totally changed his point of view. Switched majors, and he earned an Associate of Science degree. And working there at the lab, he has continued his education at University of Illinois Chicago, is that right, UIC, and by the end of 2014, he'll have his bachelor's degree in biological science. So essentially, he's working on what he says here, essential proteins of M. tuberculosis. Those of you that are bio-oriented will understand what that is. Our second fish here is Ricky Sanders. He works for the Corpus Christi Army Depot. He is a machinist/programmer. So he works with the heads are nodding for those of you who know what that is. So you know. He grew up in North Carolina, currently lives down in Texas. He went to Johnson Community College. He started in machine technology. And after a year there, he transferred to the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. And he's here via DefTech, our DefTech Center, where he studied computer integrated machine technology. 5 years worth of training. He has his AA degree, and since 2007 he has worked in the manufacturing shop there at the Corpus Christi Army Depot. He's been working for 8 years. Trin has been working for 3. And then we have John here. He's been 15 years with the company he's with. He's with Stone Environmental Engineering and Science, and he's a project manager, environmental consultant, and as of this week was just named vice president of his company. This is a small environmental firm. I mean, that was news. I was just talking to him a couple weeks ago. So he started on a football scholarship at Gannon University. He got injured, lost his athletic scholarship, had to regroup. He attended Cuyahoga Community College and then eventually Columbus State Community College. And he explored a lot of stuff and found the environmental technology program. He is currently he's just now completing his associate degree. In December, he will receive it. He started as an intern and worked his way up. So 3 truly outstanding gentlemen sit before you here. So I would like to just start with sort of a toss-up kind of question. What led you to choose a career in science or high-tech manufacturing? And how did you get there to that decision?
Well, for me, it was the environmental field. Always. Do I need this?
Yeah.
I should go.
Since
Is it
you're
on?
taping, it might be a good idea.
I don't even think it's on.
Hello? There it goes.
When I started looking into what field I wanted to go into, I was living with 6 guys that I went to high school with who were all pursuing their 4-year degree. And I needed to get into the workforce right away because I needed to start paying my bills because I was injured playing football. And when I noticed environmental seemed to be a buzzword at that time, and it was always evolving, and the demand for a job was high. So that's what drew me to the environmental field.
Myself, I had been doing for years some just Joe jobs, regular things, and then I decided one time I had enough of that. I wanted to go back to school. I originally went back for photography, but I saw a professor that he had a master's in science. He has a master's in fine arts. Next thing I know, the industry kind of shifted on him, and he was working part-time at Whole Foods in the meat department. So I decided, I have a chance in science, maybe I'll go for that. Like I've always liked science. I've always been into it. And I had URC, which is Undergraduate Research Collaborative, which was part of NSF. It was an NSF-funded program, kind of got me into that. And I did undergraduate research, and then met my professor, who's actually in the audience here today, and got me more interested in science, got me into it, and now a few years later, I'm working at ITR and pursuing my bachelor's degree.
Actually, for me, even as a kid, I loved playing with Legos, imagining things, building things with Legos. I was so skilled in measuring, trying to get from this place to this, how to figure out how to connect these Lego blocks. And then I was doing leading, and I remember my instructor one day came up to me and said, you're very good in measuring. Maybe you should get started with machinery technology. So I started learning the basics, geometry, mathematics, things like that. And then after a couple of years, I went to a community college where I was fascinated. And I started working with 3D compositions. And basically, how do I make those 3D compositions and make an end product? I started working for NTID. Well, I went to NTID, and I majored there. I started working more with technology, computer control, with different materials, and I started doing programming as well. And when I got there, I started getting all that experience, and that's what got me here.
Very cool. All right, so would you guys talk about, so math and science are often barriers for people to get through STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, math programs. Talk about your experience with math and also the harder science courses, how you got through them. Maybe they were all easy for you, maybe they weren't. And how also you're using them now. So how, are you still using that stuff in your current jobs?
I'll start. I'm not that great at math. I'm very good at biological science and other things, but not that great at math. And it was a little bit of a barrier trying to do certain like trig and other things. But I noticed all the classes I had a hard time with are historically classes that everyone has a hard time with. And what got me through it was basically just honestly doing it. I mean, really focusing, putting more time and more effort, and a couple of professors who were pretty cool about trying to help you. Like, it was a community college. What I like about community college is the fact that they have more of a usually sense of like actually teaching, and wanting to actually help the student. Whereas I am in the university, and you're basically on your own there. And my university, there's 25,000 students, so it's hard to get anything kind of help sometimes. And one thing it taught me, I really loved, one thing I do like is project-based learning. I think that really helped me a lot in sciences. I mean, I still use everything I learned in like my molecular classes, and for my job, that is my job. I mean, I study protein, I work with cells, and that really works. I mean, that to me was the number one thing.
I've always been a science person. When it comes to math, I was always had the mindset of when am I ever going to apply this, especially when I got into trigonometry, calculus.
Yeah, okay.
But one thing going to community college and getting into the workforce right away is I was actually able to apply that into groundwater modeling and things that I do on a technical basis. So that really drew my interest into it, where I started enjoying it a lot more. And science, I've always enjoyed science, nature, and that hence being in the environmental field.
I've gotten like basic algebra pretty well that I use in my field, but I am fascinated with math. I know that the world really depends on numbers, on calculations. What's a figure on this, a figure on that, and figuring out what the answer is. And solving those calculations is a challenge for me, and I really like it. When you have one piece and another and trying to figure out the mathematical problem to make it fit, and the calculations to make it successfully fit, is interesting for me. And I use math a lot with my technology, so I'm fascinated with math. Algebra, a little bit, but math itself, I really like it. You know, in physics, not so much.
So would you talk about persevering? Yeah, I heard you say that the way through it is to do it. Would you talk about that piece, about persevering past difficulty?
Well, I know, like myself, I have more of a years that I took a long time doing a lot of different things, and then finally went back to school because I just wanted to do something more. And then you have to have that mindset that I have to do it. I know in my university classes, I'm working and still going to university. Like I said, you don't get a lot of help, so it's on you. You want to do it, you got to do it. Or if you got to find help, you have to find help. And tutors or somebody who knows what they're doing to help you. But it's really on you to really go out there and study more, find better techniques to do it, find out what other people do that might work, and just keep on going at it if you want it.
It's interesting that you mentioned tutoring. That's actually how I got over the hump, is I became a tutor. So I could actually apply things that I didn't think I would be able to apply in the workforce and help teach other people. And that gave me a sense of gratification and satisfaction. So actually jumping in and helping other people, hands
I
on.
completely agree. Yeah. Like I had my first molecular class. My buddy was in it, and he really wasn't. He just did it because he wanted to take it. But I really learned more about sitting there on a whiteboard and helping him out and explaining the cell and explaining this to him, and it really helps to help other people too. It does. Like that's why I think a more collaborative classroom is a better classroom.
Absolutely.
As for me, I remember in the past I had a teacher and I also had a tutoring at NCID, and that led me to the jobs. You know, if you notice, the majority of people are hearing. I have to approach hearing people, and it's a frustration, the communication frustration. But to first know things, then I have to wait to see what the person said because I didn't know. I don't hear what they're saying. So I don't want to be dependent on others. I had to be assertive and start getting the help myself and not be afraid and asking for help and being leading myself to getting that help so that I could do better, and be more successful, just being more aggressive, more assertive.
I know. There was one thing. Like I know in one of my organic chemistry classes. There's one type of technique I think actually works better, flip learning. A lot of people thought about flip learning. It was the first time it was ever done at my university, and it was done with a class of like 250 students. Like, he would do videos the night before, you watch the video, you go into class, and you would do a question. It helped me. I wouldn't have passed organic chemistry 1, if it wasn't for the fact that we did that, because you could talk to your friends. He made use the iClicker. It was the only time I ever find the iClicker interesting to use so myself. And so we would go in, work together, answer the question. And it was part of the points. You got points. You had to be in class. It was mandatory. You got your points from it, and it worked. And for me, because we think it was considered one of those classes where it's a kick you out of the program kind of class at my university. And so it's basically 9% higher rate of passing, which is good in that first time doing it. I know he was really proud of it. It was a lot of work, it really was, because it was hours of video and it was hours of working in the classroom, only 3 hours a week, like 1.5 hour class per period. But I really think if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have passed Organic Chemistry 1. I mean, I think flipped learning is a way to continue learning, and because you have the collaboration that I was talking about. You have people working together to try to really answer problems and understand what they're doing rather than have it. For me, I think one of the things I think about universities is it's regurgitation of knowledge. It's just shoving knowledge in you, but actually being able to use it in a useful way. This helped do that. This actually made it work for me a little better.
When I started in the environmental technology program at Columbus State, there were 25 people in the program. It was the second year of the program, and each class that I took, each core class, was basically a group learning session. And I found that to be very helpful, just because everyone participates. Now when I go to trainings and certification refreshers, it's the same way, because you have people from different groups in the environmental field. You have regulators, you have consultants, you have scientists, you have engineers, and you get to hear their side of the field as well, and it really expands, I think, the interest and understanding of the big picture.
So, what was most memorable about your community college experience? What sticks with you today?
I like the smaller classrooms. Since I've been in the university, the smaller classroom gives you, like I said, one of my classes had 400 students at my school, the university. You're just one of a bunch. When you're in a community college, especially if you really care about what you're doing, and you really, I'm an older student, so I think I cared more than some of the younger students. And so I really focused and got to know my professors a little better, and they usually show me a little more respect and so I would talk to them more, have a better more human connection, and learn more from that. Talk to them about the subject, learn a little more about their history, what do they think about progressing through school, about doing how they did, what classes bothered them, what worries they had. Just little things you don't get when you have a major connection in you don't get a connection in a huge university.
Actually, one of my most memorable moments is that it was a good startup for me, because I learned step by step. The classes were very small. It felt like a small community. We supported each other, as opposed to what you were saying in the university. It's so big, it's so fast paced. And here I didn't have a hard time with the lab. We supported each other. They explained everything step by step. They had time to help you individually, helped each other out. The students helped each other out. There was enough time. In universities, I feel like everybody's in a rush. The class is over, you gotta go. And in community colleges, it was such an awesome experience, wonderful experience for me, because I started learning the foundation, the process, and it got me prepared to face bigger challenges, and it gave me more confidence.
When I was attending community college, I was living with 5 of my best friends. So it was beer every night. But as far as the college goes, most memorable are the relationships that I made with the fellow students. We still keep in contact, and it's great to see everyone where they're at now when we were younger and just learning about the environmental field. So I guess a memorable moment is just the relationships over time.
So is there anything you wish was different about your community college experience? Anything where you think, oh man, that was a big waste of time? Or if only they would have done this, it would have been so much better. Anything like that come to mind?
Like I said, I like the project-based learning. That was my most memorable class. I mean, it led to me getting my job and a career path. I really do think it's the way to go when it comes, and flipped learning and other things, because if you're just getting, like, the small classroom is good for that too, because you can collaborate more with everybody in the classroom. Like, I know for the one class that I had that at my at the community college, it was a lab class with lecture. It was molecular, and it was learning modern molecular techniques. Actually, something like I said, I apply that to what I do now, and that's what I wish there was more classes like that. Like even my photo classes are very much like that. They're an art class, and it's very much like that. We collaborated, we work, we talk to each other. It's a much better, I think it's a better way to learn than just having information thrown at you that necessarily you might not be able to connect to, or pure memorization, which I think a lot of classes are, where there's only a finite amount of information you can stuff in your brain at a certain time. And as I'm an older, I hate to mention it again, but as an older student, I took a neurobio class, and the truth is, you start overwriting old memories and mixing weird things together. So, if that's why it's better to do, I think, a project-based learning or flipped learning thing.
I wish my community college had more technology, more access to technology, professional machinery tech, because it tends to be old-fashioned from the 1990s, basic, stuff like that. So I wish it was more newer technology and computers, more high-tech, things like that. They only had like basic equipment. I wish they had more of that, better equipment so that we can be better prepared and be a little bit more advanced instead of graduating and feeling like we have to catch up to the new technology out there.
I completely agree. When I was in school, we just had the bare bones of field equipment. And so what we were learning on 2 years later was obsolete. And with the environmental field, it tends to be very trendy. A lot of buzzwords, asbestos, lead paint. And I think the courses, when I went back and revisited and talked to my main professor, I asked him, what's the coursework like? And it was still the same as when I was going to school 5 years prior. A lot of things have changed since then, and the program didn't adapt. And we had a long discussion about that. But probably for me personally, it would be the equipment, and I agree with Ricky here.
I kind of had a weird thing with the opposite with Harold Washington. Believe it or not, even though it's a small school, but we had some professors who cared, so they got some grants. So we did have some decent equipment. Not a lot of it, not a ton of it, but for our small classroom size, it was better. Where at my university, some of the stuff is like 30 years old, and sometimes in some of the classes we don't even have. I had to bring my own gloves to one class. They made us bring our own class. This is a major university. That's one thing that's always peeved me, and that's what I'm talking about now. But it's just weird little things like that. Like, because the classrooms are so big and they have so many of them, like they did break it into 25 groups of 25, but still they have multiple groups of 25, and everyone, like the equipment gets used and old and battered, and you don't have it, you can't learn. It's harder, I think, to apply it to more modern techniques when you're doing some really old school version of it.
So to sort of wrap this up, if you would speak to where you see your career going personally for the future, and trends. What are the trends in bio that you might know, in the computerized machining that you might know of, the environmental science? So it's sort of sector trends, things that we could expect in the future, and then also what you see for yourself in the future.
I don't think biotech is like a buzzword right now, you know what I mean? Everybody's doing biotech. Even I'm looking into food science possibly, or continue on doing research. I'm debating. But my brother-in-law, he works at the food science. They're looking for biotech because they need somebody who understands GMOs. Yeah. If they need somebody to understand that, and there's jobs opening up there. I mean, it's a field. It's growing. Even like a food science company needs somebody who understands biotechnology.
One of the things is that technology is constantly advancing. The paperwork is becoming less, everything's becoming computerized. So having computerized SolidWorks, Mastercams, ramp, all of that good stuff that it's basically speeding. Technology is just advancing and it's gonna be less paperwork. So I see for my future doing more of reverse measuring, reverse engineering. I think that's wonderful technology where you can process it into 3D, make a path for a couple minutes if you're pretty much an expert, and then you send the math, the computation, and then it gets done. And then you can sell the material later.
I see that the field equipment being used in the environmental is becoming wireless, and whereas when you would set up, say, a data logger in a well that would monitor groundwater levels, you'd have to attach it to your laptop and sit there for 24 hours and monitor it. Well, now it's wireless, and you can sit at home and download it on your iPhone. That's been a big step, and then that also relays into man hours having to work, and now we're getting on the management side of things. Less man hours to be, so you don't have to charge your clients as much and be more competitive. But overall, I think the technology and the equipment being used is the big thing.
Okay, so thank you all very much. So we're going to open this up, and so you're prepared, the interpreters will go and stand by you, so Ricky can see you and the question at the same time as you're addressing the group. So you can be prepared for that, and they're just going to make this work seamlessly as they have until now. So who has a question or a comment for the group?
I have a question. And the interpreter doesn't need to
Oh
stand by you.
yes. Myra, okay.
I know that Ricky, through his college experience, had a co-op. And I'd like him to talk a little bit about how that co-op was a benefit for him and maybe led to his future jobs.
Yes, actually the co-op was very important. It was really important for the co-op. Basically, it's great for any industry. You arrive, and the co-op actually, they see your skills, they hire you, they see your skills from college, and then when you're ready to work. I know the internship itself is 10 weeks. And I remember that my boss seen me and said, wow, he was in his department and he just hired me. If there was no internship, if I had no internship experience. If I haven't had internship experience, then maybe I would have not had the opportunity to get that job. They would have said, who is that in the list of the resumes or whatever. But the co-op gave me the opportunity to go ahead, do this internship, get the experience, show my skills, get comfortable, and then they went ahead and hired me. So I think it's very important. The co-op experience was very important.
Thanks for that question. Yeah.
I have a question. What surprised you the most about going into the work field? Is there anything that you wish your instructors would have taught you or told you about the work environment that we didn't? Is there something you would have liked to have known before you took your job?
A lot of my professors were more academic. There was only one or two like that worked a lot in industry before they went into academia, and they maybe didn't have that background to really tell us a lot about that. They told us a lot about academia, but they only my first mentor was He told me a little bit about industry and how it was, but not a lot. I mean, we didn't really get into it too much. It'd be a nice thing if somebody really did talk to you and say, well, if you're really going into the field, and this is what the industry is really like. Like somebody, like, I like the idea of mentors, like I've had mentors, and they, if you really someone who sit down and talk to you, well, if you're serious about it, this is what it's like. This is what you should do.
For me, probably people skills, understanding the importance of a relationship. I was introverted when I started, an introvert when I started my career, wouldn't reach out to get on a personal level with people I was dealing with. Once I opened up, I started to excel in my career to get to where I'm at now. And that's just based on the personal relationships that I've made, even outside of the environmental field, with my clients and colleagues.
I experienced when I started working that I wish I would have had the teachers tell me maybe there were things that I'm like, oh, I didn't know about that, or this is different from what I've learned. And I think that would have helped. The realization that college cannot teach you absolutely 100% everything out there. They can only teach you the foundational knowledge in order for you to start working. And you'll learn that more in the internship. And that's really what I learned in the internship, because in all reality, they cannot teach you 100% everything that's in the field.
So how important do you think multitasking, teaching students how to multitask in preparation for work? We do that in our program, and many times students just feel that I'm trying to torture them by getting them to do more than one thing at a time, to learn how to do that. And so I really want to know how important that is in your job.
It's huge for me, being in consulting, because you have billable hours, non-billable hours, admin work to do, marketing work to do. So you're always multitasking. You're always working under a budget. So understanding the importance of getting certain tasks done and prioritizing those tasks, I believe is huge.
I think it's very important to learn how to multitask and to be efficient at it. I understand where a student might come in and say, you're giving me all this work and everything, because they're still in the mindset where they're learning how to do the one thing and they want to do it well. If they want to do it well, then multitasking, it's been proven, like, it's hard to do a million things well at the same time, you know what I mean? And so I think, as I said, it's important to learn. I do multitask on times. Like if I get busy in the lab, I have to do this, to go this, I have to wait for this, time this right. Timing. I think timing, like learning to time your things is very important. That could be taught better, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is tough. It is tough. I think it's more important to remember what is the priority. Learn how to prioritize. This is the most important, and then prioritize as far as what is the most importance. That way you don't feel like you're getting lost. And then do step 1, and then go to step 2, and then step 3, and that would help you to become more motivated, less lost. You'll feel like you're having better time management and more successful.
I saw his hand first, and then come back to you. Yes, sir.
And if you find yourself today in the classroom as an instructor, how would you like and how would you teach your student, and what type of experience you had or you gained you will use to motivate the students, the future generation, not only to be successful in biotech industry, but also to be successful in life in general?
I've always enjoyed the labs, not so much the lectures. And getting the hands-on experience, I think helped me understand the lectures more. Obviously, that's the point of the lab. But I would focus more as an instructor on the lab work and having the students work together and figure out the problem. I just taught a short course for the National Groundwater Association in June, and the first 2 days we were out in the field collecting data, And then the third day was in the classroom. And we said, okay, we have all this data, now what should we do? What should we do with it? And we left it up to the students to evaluate that data. So I think trying to promote thinking outside of the box is something that I would focus on as an instructor.
Everything he's saying is basically what you do in a project-based learning class. Like, you have a project, you do it, you learn in the lab how to like solve the problem, how to actually look at it, think about it, solve it. It's practical knowledge, as opposed to just like I think it's needed to have a bridge between the practical knowledge and what you're learning in the classroom. Like I said, they absolutely need it to really reinforce it in people. I know a lot of people are very technical minded in that respect. Like, they need to be hands-on to understand it. Like, without that, I mean, it's harder, I believe.
You know, I would tell the students that the old traditional machinery, I know that. And I would tell them the basics, how it started, how the technology has evolved, what the technology is being used now, so that they can understand where we were and where it's at the present moment. Also, so that they can understand concepts and learn that technology is always changing. What's going to happen maybe in the future? If you have this, how are you going to connect it with the next piece? And explain the why this has happened and how it continues to bloom.
I like that exactly. Concepts are important. Like, the concept, I think, is more important than memorization. Nowadays, you have your phone. As we were talking earlier, when she was presenting at lunch, you have the whole world right here. If you need to look up a fact, you can look up the fact. But if you understand the concept behind the fact and what you're looking at, that helps. That's the most important thing, I think, to actually focus on concept rather than memorization, in my opinion.
Absolutely. In the environmental field, there's software for everything. And students know how to plug the data into the software and it spits out the solution. Not understanding how that software, what it does, and how it gets to that solution is very important. And that goes, I know we were just complaining about poor equipment, but understanding that old equipment, going back to machinery, and how it got to where it's at now, you know the baseline, the basis of where it began.
It's like my dad was an engineer at Boeing. He started with a slide rule design landing gear, and he ended with the 777, which is completely on computer. But he knew, and some of the younger guys didn't really know how the answers, and he could look at printouts and go, this doesn't look right. So, yeah, question.
My question is, I know he did an internship with the co-op. Did you guys do an internship?
Yeah, I've done internships.
Okay, can you give us some experience and, was it important? Did it make a difference?
I did an internship in Hope College, where I did plant research. I think it's interesting to go out and do internships where it's not exactly in the field you're looking at. It wasn't cellular molecular stuff, but it was something that I learned about another field of biology. It was interesting, and there was some boring parts because I was waiting for plants to grow. And it wasn't an industry internship, no.
I did 2 internships. My first internship, I worked for Franklin County, the Department of Health, and it was a summer internship, and I had to inspect septic tanks. I almost got out of the environmental field after that summer. But it taught me that I did not want to work for the government. And my second internship is with the company I'm at now. So it was valuable.
Yes.
Can I just stand behind you?
Sure.
Obviously, you've been taught the technical skills that you needed to go out into the field and get your jobs. Do you feel like you were forced to have the correct soft skills in order to be able to go out and to gain employment in the workforce? Were those soft skills integrated and forced into the curriculum that you were provided from the technical side? When I say soft
Soft
skills,
skills.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the ability to communicate effectively in a written format, oral format,
Yeah.
the ability to be able to do teaming, the ability to prepare a resume and how to interview, to get in the door.
The resume thing, no, I've never had. But the other stuff, like we did, like when I was in the URC program, the Undergraduate Research Collaborative, that's some of the stuff they did teach, like how to present, how to do a poster presentation, how to do this, how to. We did part of it was English, and they had to write what we had to write. I really help. It does help you a lot in my field to be able to write, like try to help write a part of a paper or do something like that. It's helpful.
Technical writing is probably the most important course that I've ever taken. It helped me be able to understand certain phrases and the way that you need to phrase things, especially when writing contracts and proposals. And then from there, the technical writing, I was able to expand in communication what I was trying to get across to clients. To help them understand the certain concepts who didn't understand environmental stuff. So I hope that helps answer your question.
For me, I always have a difficult time with communication, face to face, no matter how even writing. Some people have an easier time. You know, if I can lip read or if I can understand you. People are always concerned that I'm not understanding, and we use writing as a backup so I can share some of that information and we can communicate better that way. But if we're in a big meeting or if we're in an interview, I will always ask for an interpreter just to make sure that everything is clear. I can lip read some, but in a big kind of a setting, I really do need an interpreter.
So our time is nearly up. I want to. Do you want to say something or have a question?
A question.
Yeah. But they'll stick around, right? They'll stick around for you. I want to thank our 3 graduates, our 3 technicians, living proof that our community college system is producing outstanding professionals. You guys were just great. Thank you so much. Interpreters, you also were great, and I have never worked with interpreters and the deaf before, and it was so easy and seamless from the moment I walked up to the lobby where we met. Consummate professionals, really supportive of the process, and it was just outstanding experience for me personally. So thank you.
And thank you, Carol. I think that we all need to know that she's put a lot of behind-the-scenes work into this, and it just isn't that if you're going to try to do this yourself, you don't just gather that moment. You have your questions prepared, the fish know what the questions are, they meet ahead of time so that they meet each other, and thank you all for your participation.